Okay, guys, so I'm going to go through on how to do this Chapter 4 activity extension. You're going to have an equation, a function that you're going to use Desmos to help you graph. And from there, you'll be able to narrow down some zeros and then write it in two different formats. So the one format is called an irreducible function, where it is all of their factors. Okay. The second one is with the zeros. So it's when the multiples are all written out, and you'll see that. So you're going to have to actually solve in order to do that. Some functions are going to be all real numbers, or have all real numbers, I should say. So they'll be nice whole values to use. Others will be imaginary or radical. It just depends on the situation. Okay, so we have this first one. X to the fourth minus 19x cubed plus 113x squared minus 163x minus 296. So the first thing you're doing is you're graphing this. Okay, so we are graphing it on Desmos. You are going to screenshot the graph and put it into the slide so I can see it. And we're going to be aware of these 2 points. So I'm going to make note that this graph is using or has zeros at the points -1 and 8. Those are 2 x values that I need to be aware of. Okay, so let me go back here. I'm going to make note of that. So from the graph, I had x equals -1 and x equals 8. The next thing I have to do is use synthetic division so I can come up with the factors for this and the solutions to it, because I need those 2 things. So I'm going to start with synthetic division on using -1. Remember, you use your coefficients. So I have 1, -19, 113, -163, and -296. And if you are missing anything, don't forget you have to put the 0 as a placeholder. So we drop down the 1, multiply. So real quick to go through this, right? -1 times -1 is -1. You add down, gets you -20. Multiply that. Now it's a +20. Add down, it is 133. Multiply it, you get -133. Add down, there's -296. Multiply it, it's a +296, and we get 0. Remember, that's what you want to have happen. That tells me it's a factor. Now, I'm not even going to attempt to try and factor that again. I'm going to use the 8 and do another round of synthetic division. I then take these new values and make it my new top row. Don't have to put the 0 because that was the remainder. And then you repeat the process. Okay, so I drop this down. I get 1. 8 times 1 is 8. Right, we're going to add those. We get -12. -12 times 8 is 96, or -96. Add them together, we get 37. 37 times 8 is 296. Add it together, there's my 0. Now, I can't do anything from there. That's all I could do. Those are the only 2 values I got from the graph. I can try to attempt it, but 37 is a prime number, so I can't factor that any further. So I can put those together. A -1 comes from x plus 1. A +8 comes from x minus 8. And then I have this leftover function, which is x squared minus 12x plus 37. And again, just to remind yourselves, this started as an x to the 4th. When it drops down, this became an x to the 3rd. When it drops down, it becomes an x squared. So each division made it smaller and smaller. So this is your irreducible function. Those are your factors. You can't do anything else from there. Okay, now the other one's going to come from your zeros, which means you need to find your zeros. So I'm going to scroll down from here a little bit. Again, I know a few things. I know x equals -1. I know x equals 8. And now I got to figure out, well, what does x squared minus 12x plus 37 get me? Again, remember, these came from x plus 1 equals 0, x minus 8 equals 0. So I do have to figure out what this is. And in order to do so, I need to use the quadratic formula. So quadratic formula, a reminder, is x equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And we're going to start by finding this piece first, which we call the discriminant. So if I find the discriminant for this, your a is 1, b is -12, c is 37. So if I use this little formula and I put all those values in, I'm going to put that in my calculator right now. And I get a -4. Okay, great. Now I can take that and finish off my quadratic formula. So x equals negative of b, which was -12, plus or minus the square root of this guy, so -4, all over 2 times a, which is 1. And now it's just a matter of simplifying from here. So negative of -12, that's a positive 12, plus or minus square root of -4. So if I do that on the side here, square root of -4 means I'm looking at the square root of -1, square root of 4. Square root of -1 is I, square root of 4 is 2. So this becomes 2i all over 2 times 1, which is 2. And I can actually divide all these evenly by 2. I can reduce this. 12 divided by 2 is 6, plus or minus 2 divided by 2 is 1, so 1i. So these are my zeros. And to make the second or the final factor that I want, you're simply going to do x plus 1 again, x minus 8 again. I know those two. And now the 6 plus and 6 minus I, remember you go based on the sign of the leading number. So it's x minus 6 plus I, because it was a positive 6 plus an I, and then x minus 6 minus I. So you, again, go based off of the sign of the first number, and you need to have one positive I and one negative I, and that is your factors of your zeros. And if I was to actually multiply this out, which I'm not going to make you guys do, but if you were to multiply this out, you do get back to this part for the irreducible, and you get back to the very beginning of the example. Okay, so for each question, I expect to see this kind of work. You're going to insert the graph. Tell me what values you got from the graph. You're going to show me the synthetic division to get down to your irreducible factors. You're then going to solve each of them, each of those factors, as I did here, come up with each of the zeros, and then list them all out in a set of factors one final time. Okay, and like I said, you're going to have some that are nice whole numbers, like we have here with -1 and 8, or you might have some that are imaginary or irrational. Just reduce them as best as you can so you can come up with this new function.